Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. It's Matt Cook, and I'm here with Jonathan Green. Every week, we bring you relationship and dating advice that's going to completely change your world, hopefully for the better, or at least have some fun with it. Probably terrible advice. Um, I have about 700,000 newsletter subscribers. I've been a health and sex researcher for 25 years. Jonathan Green was one of the most famous dating coaches in the world, and he retired to a tropical island, and here we are. So, do you want to ask a first question that came in, Jonathan?
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this a little bit, and a lot of the people write in stuff that's like super intense, but I want to start with something light, which is my boyfriend is 28,
Yes.
I'm 30.
Okay.
He says I'm bad in the bedroom. So
Yeah.
embarrassing and honestly it makes me upset. I've cried a few times about this and I have no idea what to do. My
Wow.
boyfriend had been dating for about 6 months. Before him, I never dated anyone long term and I was a virgin. Obviously, I'm not anymore. Except for the past 3 months, we've been sleeping together and he tells me that I'm not good. At first, it
Hmm.
didn't hurt my feelings that much. I mean, it did, but I thought I'd get better. I didn't expect to be phenomenal my first time, but according to him, I sucked and I haven't gotten any better. I tried to ask him for
Oh.
help and advice, but he doesn't have anything to say. What confuses me is that he still wants to do it and he finishes every time, and I do everything he wants, every position, every act. I even do it if it doesn't turn out that great. And consistently, he gives me a nah. Starting to wear down my self esteem. I think I'm pretty and I think I'm decent, but the way he acts, he could take it or leave it. I feel mediocre, mid, if you will. That's how you know it's a
Uh,
modern, use modern terms. I don't know what to do. I've gone down a rabbit hole looking online for advice, but I also know pornography is not the best teacher, right? So what do? I think I might lose my boyfriend if I don't do something to make him happier. I don't want him to leave me over bedroom fun. How can I get better?
mhm. Ugh. So I think the thing that women really have to do is be enthusiastic and get turned on and really want a man. I think that's probably the most important thing for a woman to do. So when I hear that women aren't good in bed, I usually think about the fact that they simply are not communicative, they're not moaning and groaning, they're not opening up, they're not wanting the man, showing how much they want, how much they're enjoying it, all that. So how do you start becoming more expressive and more of your arousal? I think that's the question. And so at the beginning, what you need to do, and this applies to men to some degree as well. I mean, everybody. I mean, what you want to do is you want to start making noise, even if it feels unnatural and weird. And if you do that, you really make noise, you really work on it. Eventually, it becomes real, and then you start becoming more verbal, and that's very exciting to a man and or to your partner. And that's usually what solves this problem, because I don't think it's the mechanics of what she's doing. I think it's the fact that she is not demonstrating enthusiasm in bed. That's my opinion. I've seen this many times.
So interesting because we hear the same question and yet we hear a completely different thing. To me,
Right.
this is the guy's fault.
Hmm.
She's a virgin, which means anything he tells her, she's going to think is normal. She doesn't have any pre existing bad habits. And she said to him, "What do you want me to do different?" He goes, "I don't know." So that's his fault, right? Like
She's
he
not showing
hasn't,
passion. She's not showing passion. That's why. That's why he's saying that.
y- you're, there's nothing in here that says that. Like she
I'm
didn't,
just
she's,
speculating, but it's a
that's what I
common
mean.
thing. When men say a woman's bad in bed, they usually mean that she's unresponsive. You know, they have that expression like a dead fish. You know,
Yeah, but she's like, I'll do whatever he asks me. I'll
right?
do
But that's
anything.
not the point. It's not mechanical. It's what how
Because
excited she is to be.
you always think it's the guy's pornography addiction, which is like probably what
I didn't
this is.
say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say
I
that.
know, but I mean, come on. He's like asking her to do a bunch of weird stuff. She said that. She's
Hmm.
making him go off menu. He's making her do stuff that's a little
Hmm.
bit weird. She's like, I'll do anything he
Well,
asks,
she doesn't
everything.
have a menu because she's never done it before. Yeah,
Yeah, but
I
he goes,
don't
there's
think it's that.
and
I don't think she's showing enthusiasm for him and passion. And
man, this time I am siding with the lady because it's very suspicious to me because he's much older. She doesn't have any bad habits. Listen, because I remember the first time I dated a girl who never kissed anyone before. Believe me, she was epic very quickly because you can just teach her exactly what you like, and she doesn't do any of the stuff you don't like that other previous boyfriends liked. So I suspect that this guy is the problem, and maybe you're right that she's not enthusiastic, but I think part of it, the reason she's not enthusiastic is because he's not making it a good experience for her. It sounds like everything is completely about him, right? There's nothing in here about he's trying to pleasure me, he's trying to make me feel good. It's all he basically makes it sound
Yeah,
like it's something he does to her. Like,
right.
so I
Yeah,
think
that's true
that
too.
now having, I've been around the block too many times, and a lot of people, the problem with someone who has a lot of experience is that they'll do all the things that different previous exes like that you don't
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
And you have to go back through and note, don't do that. That's weird. Who taught you that? Oh, three exes ago. And that one, what are you doing 2 exes ago? So she doesn't, she's blank slate, right? So she doesn't have any basis of her comparison to know if, oh, this guy is weird, right? Because she hasn't been with anyone else. But her desire, like, she's like, I don't want him to leave me for this. It's also weird that he's like saying all of this. My feeling is that if you don't tell me what you want me to do, then you can't be upset I don't do it, right? Like
I'm going to
that's
still say the same thing. It's very hard to tell a girl you don't have passion, you're not showing emotion, you're not
pretty
excited
comfortable saying you're
enough.
bad at sex. Like he's pretty
Well,
comfortable going right to the.
that's mechanical, but it's more of a
Yeah.
personal attack on somebody if you tell them that they're not feeling things, they're not showing. Anyway, that's what I think, and I think
All
it's
right.
not uncommon either. Really, it's a missing element. Because that
I
one thing
think
is a
both.
lot of people. She mentioned it. They learn from porn, and porn people are porn people. I mean, they're either actors or they're amateurs, but the emotion isn't there. The passion and all that. It's not necessarily exciting on camera, so they don't learn
So
that.
yeah, so that's where I was going with that is I think that
Yeah,
maybe he wants her to act like a porn girl, which is unnatural,
yeah.
right? Like he wants her to say things like, give it to me, daddy, give it to me, daddy. And that's a weird thing to say, right?
Well, yeah. I mean,
I mean, maybe you're
yeah.
different, but I don't want my wife to call me daddy. She
I,
did it in a
I I
really
never
different
I
joke.
never understood that. I
Oh,
never liked that. I never liked how men would say baby to their girlfriends or whatever. I don't know. It's okay. I mean, it doesn't bother me, but I never got to
yeah,
like that.
it's
Um, well, we have a theme today. What's the theme today?
the theme is what's the right age to get married?
Ah, right age to get
And
married. So, what do you think? Do you think that is it 16 or 18?
so I think that you have to get married obviously before the first harvest. That's critical because you're going to get married. You're going to get pregnant on May Day, right? That's the old maypole. You have that harvest festival. Everyone goes around the maypole and gets pregnant to celebrate the fertility of the land. Classic
That's like
time.
it, but that could happen at age 15. We don't. That's not okay now these days.
Well, no, it depends on the state. I think in some states you can
Yeah,
get married younger, but and especially
yeah.
if you're relatives, you can get married even younger. I think that I was thinking about this, and I want to bring up something to you that I read this week, and I don't know if it's true. So this one, you just let me know. Someone posted in a YouTube comment under a video that every time a woman sleeps with a man, some of his DNA becomes part of her permanently. And
Hmm.
he got specific and said the DNA ends up in the soft tissue behind her eyes. And that the body actually, when different men are with her, it starts to have an inflammation reaction. As in, this is why sometimes women get sick and they don't know why, because the different DNA inside of her is fighting DNA from the other guys. And that
Now
when a
we're
woman,
assuming that the men aren't using condoms.
yeah, I don't think anyone, it seems like no one uses a condom except for me. Like it's,
Well, it
everyone I
doesn't. I
talk
mean,
to, like, everyone acts like I'm the weirdo. So that's another, I'll bring that up in a second because we can go down
okay,
that path.
okay, okay.
The, But yeah, everyone eventually goes unprotected or starts out unprotected in that the more men you sleep with as a woman, that eventually you have just so many different sets of DNA inside you. And this is why women, after a certain number of men, I think it's after 7 partners, that the odds of women having a successful marriage drops down like 90%. So once you cross a threshold with the number of partners, and it's interesting because some women are like, oh, I want to get to 100 before I get married. I want to get to 300. And they think that that's a good thing. And it kind of goes to the last question, which is I think some people think, oh, I need to be with a bunch of people so I can be good at bedroom time for my husband, so that when I get married, I'll be good at it. And it's like, well, the first thing you find out is that all the things you learned before, husband doesn't like. You like a different set of things.
I think the
So
number of partners a woman should have before she gets married is probably somewhere under 5. Maybe it's 2 or 3, ideally. Not many. I think it's better not to have a lot of partners, really. Um, and
I agree.
probably, yeah, and probably for men too. I mean, I don't think it's helpful for men to have hundreds of partners or whatever, either. I mean, it's okay. It's not as of a problem as it is for women, but I think that when people are married, getting married, the right age to get married. I don't think people need to get married unless they want to have children. Um, I know they do. People get married because that's what they're taught and conditioned, even if they don't want children. But if they don't want children, I don't see the point in getting married. So if they do want children, they should get married and have children. And the right age for that is the younger, the better. People feel like marriage is going to interfere with their career and all of that, so they tend to put it off. But I think getting married and having children earlier is much better than later because when you're younger, even though you have a lot of responsibilities and money is tight, you have much more energy to deal with it. So it's nice if you're like 30 and you have 1 or 2 children instead of like 40 and having 1 or 2 children. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that we've seen this. It's really interesting. Like Japan, everyone gets married later and later, and now their population is dying off.
They're not having
Like
children. Yeah.
they wait later. Once you switch to a dual income economy where the men and the women work, there's a high correlation with that and the civilization dying off.
Well,
Because
I guess what you're saying is, in a way, a corollary is that we don't have as many children when we're working double income. We go,
yeah,
well, when you have the farm in the old days, you have 4 or 5 kids, they'd help work the farm or whatever. Now, the kids are expensive and they're not really going to work the farm. So 1 or 2 kids is probably normal now. And I think it's 2.1 is replacement, unless you have a lot of immigration. 2.2, something like that.
that's not. But that's the thing is that's not immigration is not replacement. That's a different population coming in,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
what happens
So,
in
so what
Japan.
are so most people, the average isn't 2.2 kids. And I've told you this, we see baby strollers all the time and I always look in and there's always a dog in them, that people don't even have their dogs walking anymore. It's so weird. They have their dogs in baby strollers. And you
Oh,
see
I
that in the East and the West Coast. You see it in very affluent, kind of left-wing, wealthy areas. Whereas in the Midwest, you see people with a lot of kids. Okay, so if you accept the fact that people who have very high IQ a lot of times live in places like New York and Los Angeles, they're not having kids, then you have to accept the fact that probably the people with kids are not as smart. So having IQ is coming down. Smart people aren't having kids.
yeah, but maybe they're not the smart ones after all because their
Absolutely.
lines are dying off. So part of it is that as you get older, the odds of things going wrong, but for the woman especially, the odds of like disabilities, diseases, all of those numbers go up, especially once you hit mid 30s. Like there's a lot more complications. The
Yeah.
risk of death
Yeah.
during childbirth goes way up, all
Yeah.
of these other factors. And so you actually, even if you decide, oh, I want to have a bunch of kids, it's just harder and it takes longer to
Yeah.
get pregnant.
Right.
So that's when you hear people like, oh, we've been trying for 2 years. I don't know what that's like. I've never tried for more than one time.
Well, I
Every
have a suggestion on that because it's something that comes up quite a bit. Most of the men I work with are older, but some of them are younger, and they want to have children. A lot of times when people can't have children or they're not getting pregnant, it's because the man's sperm isn't very good. Actually, more often now than the woman's. I always blame them, oh, your eggs aren't good or something, and then they go and she has various procedures to check her out. And then they go, well, she's okay. What about you? What about the guy? He's like last. It turns out if you consume like a lot of sugar, like 10, 12 ounces of sugar, which you can do by, let's say, drinking Cokes or things like that, in a week or two, as a man, your sperm gets to be really, really good. And you can get a woman pregnant really, really easily. That's all you have to do.
So what I actually do is I add the sugar to it. So
Yeah.
I finish
Well,
into
you're
a
having
spoon of sugar.
sex. That's one thing too. That's a good point. You have
Well,
to
I
have
finish
sex,
into it.
intercourse.
What I actually do is I finish onto the spoon with the
Hmm.
sugar in it, and I put
Yeah.
that together inside of her. So it's just that way it gets right to the source.
It's a
So
tasty
she's
snack for her
yeah,
regions. Tasty snack.
it's
So
exactly
I
that.
have
It's
a
all
I have a This is kind of an odd one. I'm an ordinary Asian woman studying in Europe. I'm East Asian. She says, I've lived not only in Europe, but because of my father's job, also in the Western countries like Australia and New Zealand. But um, I meet men of various races, but it seems like they're all the same. They think I'm easy. They like anime or K-pop or interested in Asian culture, and they tell me that they hate the women that are in their country because the women have strong egos and expect a lot from men. One man even offered me friends with benefits at the first meeting. I didn't even meet him at a club or on a dating app. And even men who aren't East Asian, okay, they have similar behavior. I want to be seen as a woman, not an Asian woman. So these days, if someone seems interested in Asian culture, I avoid that person. I'd rather feel that a man who is not interested in Asia is better. Okay, what else should I do to avoid this type of person? I've never really thought about this problem before.
Yeah, what's interesting is that people want you to like them for a particular set of reasons. So it's like, oh, you like me, but you don't like the things about me that I wish you liked, right? Like, I don't like that you like my culture is a weird rule to have. Now, I understand what she's talking about because there are men who go too far.
Mhm.
And what she's talking about is people who see her not as herself, but as like a cartoon character, right? And people do this for all different cultures as well. We do this for men as well. It's like, oh, I just see you as what you represent, not who you are. So she's meeting, I know guys like this. I lived in Japan for a long time that
Mhm.
just are too into Japanese culture. And I was the first person in my group of friends in the 90s that got into anime. I was the first person wearing Dragon Ball Z shirts. And then everyone started getting into that. And I go, uh oh, I got to find something new because I don't want to be, it's not cutting edge, right?
They're all
So
following you. That's the problem, Jonathan. You're
I used
the thought leader.
Well, I used to buy my T-shirts at a comic book shop that was like hidden, and then they started selling similar T-shirts in the mall. And I go, okay, I gotta change. This is not working anymore. I have to change directions because
But
it's
so
not.
you're letting the masses dictate what you do. Well, if you like those shirts, why shouldn't you keep wearing them?
No, I don't like if everyone else is wearing the same thing as
Oh,
me. So that's what it
okay.
came. It came. Oh, now I. It's the same thing. See what happens if you go to a dinner party and your wife sees someone else wearing the same dress as her.
Oh God.
That's what I'm talking about.
They have to have an app now to clear. They should have an app where the woman puts in what she's going to wear, and it all makes sure that they're all different. That would be great.
It's actually maybe we should change our business model. That's actually genius.
It's a really good idea. Yeah. Well, I
So
don't know what she means though. Like, so why is a
sure.
man offering her friends with benefits at the first meeting? Like, what does that have to do with being Asian, if
I think
anything?
no. So there are two. She's mixing together three different types of guys.
Yes.
First of all, there's the guy who's way into Asian stuff,
Yeah.
and it can become, I like you because you're Asian, and I don't like anything about you as an individual. That's what she's hearing. That's the first one. I
That's
know guys
awful.
like that, and I am very aware of that. Here's one of the things that was really interesting to me. So when I moved to Japan, I lived there for 2 years in my 20s. Every single guy there was into Japanese women.
Sure. Well,
But a
that's good.
lot of the foreign women were like, I would never date a Japanese guy. And I said, you moved to a country where there's no one you're attracted to. What's wrong with you? Like, so women and men are different in that way. So I thought that fascinating. And there are guys who are on the spectrum. There were guys who were like, I'm open to dating a Japanese woman, and all the way to guys who like only liked anime, only got into Japan because they were like so obsessed with it. I fall
Hmm.
somewhere in the middle. So I'm not completely innocent of this. Like I loved watching.
Okay.
I don't watch as much now, but it's something I grew out of.
Watching what?
Just watching cartoons. I don't watch,
Oh.
I don't have that much
Oh, okay.
time.
Okay.
So anime means Japanese cartoons, not just
I thought
Japanese
it was
movies.
those books. I don't know. I guess I'm out
That's
of it.
manga. That's a great question.
Oh, that's manga.
So
Okay, got it. Manga. I love
yeah,
manga.
so yeah, me too. I think that there's a lot to be said for certain parts of Japanese culture, but you can. It's the same thing as you meet Japanese people and then you don't care about them. You just care about. You can do it for guys as well.
I don't really get
And
it. So I feel that men will go for a woman, like, regardless of almost anything, most of the time. Don't you think? I
yeah,
mean, men are just attracted to women.
yeah.
It's like they're
Look,
not
the
that picky
example
if
is
it's about sex, really.
I hate my wife's culture. Like I have no interest in her particular culture and
Hmm.
all that
Hmm.
stuff. Not
Does she know
I
that?
like her. Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's just like
Does
I
she feel
did.
that way too? Does she feel no interest in her own culture?
Yeah. So it's not a big part of our relationship. So what I mean is like I did not choose. I like her. not her
Right, right.
culture. Like
Yeah,
that's
you
one,
didn't
right,
marry one woman who's Japanese because she's Japanese. You married, I'm not saying she's Japanese, but
right,
theoretically
exactly
because
that.
you
But
liked her. Yeah.
yeah, but what's happening is she is putting out the wrong messages. There's something this woman is doing that's attracting a particular type of guy. It might be how she's dressing. Maybe she's always wearing a schoolgirl outfit. Stop doing that. If you dress like a Lolita, you're going to attract guys who like Lolitas. Like, let's just cut to the chase. So that's probably what's happening. It's also that, when you buy a Honda, then every car you see is a Honda, whatever that effect is called, like the bias
Yeah.
effect.
Yeah.
She, whatever she's doing, she needs to change it. It's not so much that I don't want to date guys who are into Japanese culture. It's that you got to date guys who are not, it's not their entire personality. That's
I
what can
think that
happen.
she comes across as a submissive Asian woman, and men are, basically glomming onto that. If she kind of maybe dresses a little bit different, starts having better, more direct eye contact and stuff, kind of more assertive, she might throw that off, and they
Yeah.
would start looking at her very differently. That's how I see it.
It's tricky because she's attracting three different guys who are different categories. There's the I'm overly obsessed with Japanese culture guy who is not the same as. Then she's talking about a passport bro type of guy who talks about how all the women back at home are terrible. I
Mhm.
didn't know people do that when they're still home. Like to me, an Asian woman in America, I wouldn't talk about how much I hate America. Like that's so strange, but I did marry a foreigner. Again, not that wasn't the main reason. I didn't come here to meet her. I came here to meet a friend for a week and it just happened to happen. But I understand that thing where there's a lot of reasons guys are burned out. We see those videos on TikTok all the time, those videos on
Yeah.
YouTube where women just do, they have rosters and massive body counts and then they go, like there's this video that has been going viral for a while about a woman who's like, I went on a date with a real man and I felt the feminism just leaving my body. And then what did she like about it? He paid for everything. And it's like, oh, you're like, that's the thing is that like you don't want a man in your life unless he's paying for everything. So that's I understand why guys are pulling away. There's a lot of guys that are going MGTOW. I don't know how that's pronounced, if that's MGTOW or whatever, men going their own way. There's a lot of guys going purple pill or white pill, like all these different names
Okay.
for it. I'm
That's
not
awful.
dating women anymore. I'm not
That's
like,
awful.
why put myself at risk? There's a lot of guys that are pulling back from the dating pool. So
I
all
know.
that's left is the
Talk
worst of
to
the
them.
worst.
Yeah.
I think that I would not, I don't think my wife and I talked about the difference between American women and foreign women until we were together for like 5 or 6 years. And it was the first time she saw a dumb person from America. And she was like, wait, I thought all Americans were smart. I said, oh boy, you are in for a wild ride. There are a lot of dummies everywhere. I said, don't you worry about that. So I was like, what an interesting assumption. And we sometimes watch videos because a lot of women will come here and from America and post videos about they can't believe guys are dating foreign women. And just like really, and my wife is like, maybe, and this is what my wife said. It was so amazing. She goes, maybe if you were better at being a woman, your men wouldn't want to get away from you. So her perspective is very different than a Western perspective,
Yeah.
right? So
That is different.
everyone spends a lot of time complaining. I think that this woman is overcorrecting, which is like, yeah, just stop it. You're going on dates with the wrong type of guy, right? And then there's the guy who offers friends with benefits on the first date. That's every guy. He didn't offer her money. I thought that was going. Most
I
people,
don't
how
think
many?
it's ever. I never offered a woman friends with benefits on the first date. I wouldn't have thought about that. To me, that's just
Listen,
insane.
we're an older
You know?
generation. If you look at how many women are in situationships, the most common question from women right now is, "I'm in a situationship. How do I turn it into a relationship?"
Yeah.
It's the new version of the friend zone. If I was making products for women, that would be the product I make, which is
So
that
women feel
situation.
like they have to compete with other women for men by basically getting to sex really soon in a relationship, and they feel like if they don't offer their bodies to the man soon, he's going to find someone else and not going to be interested. I think that's what goes on
Yeah,
with the dating situation today. But I think the women are completely wrong. It's completely wrong. It's actually
that's a really great point.
completely the
So
wrong approach.
the
Completely the
amount
wrong
of time
approach.
you'll wait goes down as you get older, I think. At least for me, it did. So when I was first in relationships like 17, 18, 19, 20, I was like, yeah, I'll wait 3 months, 6 months, whatever, because I want to get to know you and have a connection. But as you go through more relationships and realize that like
Hmm.
you wait all that time. But every single woman who I've
I
ever
wouldn't wait
met
that
who
long.
made me
Yeah.
wait, there was someone she
I
didn't
think
make
three
wait.
dates is about right.
It's yeah, it's fine that thing, but also it's kind of like people don't really have a good screening process.
Hmm.
So
Right.
you wait 3 dates and you don't know if the person's awful.
But two
So that's
dates,
always
okay,
a
other
problem.
than sex, the two full dates give you a way to know somebody quite a bit to see if you like them or not. I mean,
I
that's
don't think
all.
people are asking the right questions anymore.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Like, because the physical relationship is, yeah, it's a very, very important, but that's not where you spend most of your time. You're not, unless that's what you're spending your time. But most of us don't spend our time in bed. We spend our
What
time doing other things.
you
And
I see, I think you spend like 2 hours a day in bed. Like I can't
yeah,
that's
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 true.
how you come off. You come off like me and my wife are having being in the bed at least 20% of every day to 30%. Like I feel like that's what you do. It's not the only thing you do. It's not the majority, but it's definitely
That's probably
plurality.
true. Yeah, that's probably true.
So yeah, I mean for me, it's when I was younger, it was the most important thing. And that's what shifted. I was like, all I want to do is get someone to let me do it. And now I'm like,
Yeah,
I turn
yeah.
my wife down all the time.
But once
Because
once you get a certain confidence level, you know that you can do it with somebody. That's not the
yeah.
point. You want to find a connection with somebody. So when you're young, I agree with you. When I was 17, 18, any girl that would let me, touch her, whatever, etc. I was, yeah, whatever, absolutely. But after a while, you're older, you have confidence, you know that you have something a lot of women want. It's a different story, I think. But I think waiting 3 dates is good. I think women should never sleep with a man on the first or the second date, and maybe not the third date if they don't like the guy too much or they're not sure. I think that women are trying to compete with other women by early sexual encounters with guys, and I think they're making a big mistake if they want a relationship. Um,
Yeah. It's
and if you do things like holding hands, kissing, making out, staring at each other's eyes, all that, cuddling, you do more of that, you start building that oxytocin and everything, and it makes everything really, really good when you do go to bed. And that's how you really build a real relationship, as opposed to just empty
I
sex.
don't think that you should sleep with someone so they don't leave you.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea. You're right.
I think
You're
that's a
right.
good policy based on what you said, because I think that it's interesting that like if the only reason you're sleeping with a guy is because you don't want him to choose someone else, well then you don't like
Yeah.
him that much. Right? Like that's interesting. I've got a good question for you. Let's go on and
Okay.
let's get excited
Let's
again.
move. Okay.
My boyfriend had a sexual relationship with his aunt before we met. I'm
Oh my
stuck
gosh.
between feeling bad for him and being wary of him. Me and my boyfriend have been together for a year. I'm enamored by him. I've known early on that he had a troubled upbringing, but I found out that a year before we met, he ended an 18-month affair with his mother's sister.
Hmm. Okay.
He tearfully confessed this to me last month, and I was shaken to my core. People really overuse shaken to my core. Like that to me is like, come on.
Well, okay. This could be a core thing. It's not even. It's his blood aunt. I mean, it's his relation. Okay.
So
So what's
his
where's the
his
problem?
his aunt is 15 years older than him,
I'm
but
just
it
saying,
started
where's
when
the
he was
problem from her point of view? Really?
okay.
Like that's what he did. Okay. Does that make him a
All right.
worse person? Is he a bad partner for her? Does it matter?
So yeah, I mean, she lists all the things that they did. Like she keeps asking him for more details about it, which to me is
Hmm.
weird.
Big
And
mistake.
she says, I can't understand why he likes it. She's not pretty. She looks like his mom. Like she's hating on what the woman looks like, which is interesting because I guess she's better.
Well,
And then I'm
I could see
like,
this being a tough one, getting past that.
she's wondering if he's crazy. She goes, he can't be mentally okay. What else can he do? What if we have a daughter? Will she catch his eye when she becomes of age?
Hmm.
He's spoken multiple times about wanting a daughter. I now look at it differently. Did he ever look at his half sister that way? They share the same amount of blood. Can therapy really fix this? Am I being overly paranoid? So she's wondering, and this is interesting, if he will perpetuate the abuse. Now, this is what's important. He was 19 when this happened. He was not a child. There's a huge difference between I was 12 and I was 19 when I
Yeah, I
slept with
wouldn't
my
say
aunt.
this is abuse at all. I wouldn't call it that. That's a wrong word for it. If you're,
Definitely
it's completely,
incest.
it's incest by definition. Of course it is. But and it's a taboo, rightfully so. But it's not he wasn't molested. He wasn't 14 or 12, like you said. I don't know. I think these things are more common than anybody really wants to make them out to be. What is rare, believe it or not, is to have is incest between a father and daughter or mother and son who are biological. It's very rare. It's step situations where it's much more common. And then I was wondering about this. I would imagine that brother and sister and things like that happen more often than people really want to admit. I would imagine they do. Not necessarily sex, but sexual
You know,
things going
you
on.
know
I
those
just think it's
books.
not that uncommon.
There's that series of books written in the 70s, like Flowers in the Attic, Leaves of Grass, by that woman who people would write in about their crazy intimacy stories. And they're
The
like,
one
wow,
who
this,
wrote My Secret Garden,
yeah, that.
Nancy. Right,
The
right.
sequels are so crazy. Have you ever
Well,
read the sequel?
I've read. Secret Garden is almost mandatory reading with our guys because they
Yeah.
realize how messed up women are sexually, even as bad or worse than men. It
Well, the
helps them
sequels were
feel
all
equal.
letters that he wrote to her. And they
Oh
make the
yeah,
first book look like tame. And the
I
first one
see.
is like the number of women who are like, we moved to a new town so people wouldn't know that I'm married to my
Hmm.
brother is
Yeah,
like so common. Or a lot of people, like a lot of women have slept with their dog, like just like a shockingly number, because any
I
number
see.
above two
Oh,
would be.
okay, okay,
So all sorts of
okay.
crazy. But I think that you're right that people do fall in love with relatives. I think that's why we had to make it illegal. There's a reason there's a
I mean,
law against.
I think there's some sex play that could go on. I mean, this is a full-on affair, obviously, but I think it's very common for there to be sex play between siblings. I mean, and everything. It's not. I don't think it's that big of a deal, really. There could be more serious issues with an older brother who molests a younger sister, things like that. But in this case, you just have consenting adults. I mean, do I think it's weird? I don't think it's good, but I don't think it's
Yeah.
that weird. It happens. She probably more or less
Well, then
seduced him, I would think.
what? Yeah. Well, this lady then makes a list of her boyfriend's red flags, and it's too long for me to
Okay.
read.
Yeah.
If you have a list of more than 10 red
Yeah.
flags for a
Well, that's
person, what
enough red flags.
like what are like she's like all the other things though I don't think are related.
And you know what? If I was the guy, I would never have told her I did that. That was a mistake on his part. I shouldn't have told her.
So this brings up what I want to talk to you about, which is do you think you should ask about someone's history? So when I was younger, I used to be really worried about like how many guys have you been with? Am I the best guy you've ever been with? Do I have the biggest penis you've ever been with?
Oh God. Yeah.
All these questions.
Th-
As I got older, I was like,
There'd
I
be
don't I
dragons.
don't know my wife's number. I know
I don't want
roughly
to know. I don't want to
but
know that she was with someone with a bigger penis, or I don't want to know any of
what
that.
like what position did he do? Did he make you finish? Did
Yeah.
he look
I
you
don't
in
want to
the
know any
eye?
of that.
Like all
I
of
don't want
that
any of
stuff. Like,
that.
why would you care about that? And I think
If you
it's
care
very
about
yeah,
it, just keep it to yourself, okay? Just don't bring it
one of
up. You don't have to say anything comes to your head. If you really are worried about it, just don't say anything about it.
so one of the
Scott,
things that I don't like about couples therapy is that they'll say, "Okay, tell me everything he's ever done bad to you."
couples
And
therapy is
people say,
horrible.
like,
It's
"Oh, I
horrible.
forgot about it, but he did this."
So
And you're dread
negative. Yeah. Yeah, everybody just gets angry, upset, rehashing this thing.
so and I've always been anti-therapy until I actually had a great therapist after my
Yeah.
PTSD, but he never had me like relive it. Right. And that's what a lot of marital counseling is like,
Yeah.
well, hey, what's
Right.
something that happened 16 years ago that like, and it reactivates a negative emotion and you never think about what are the things that were good 16 years ago. So I think that the bringing up your past is never going to have an upside.
No,
There's
it's
no,
never.
like, if I tell my wife, oh, I used to date someone hotter than you, she's not going to like that. And if I say I used to date someone uglier than you, she's not going to like that either. There's no
My
story.
wife was married before, and I've always known that, but I've known very little about the guy. What do I care?
But you
It's
didn't
not
ask
my
to meet him.
business. It's
Like
actually,
I feel like that's what
um,
this girl is like. Let me meet him to see, because I'll meet him and find out why they got divorced. Because maybe he can
my
get me
wife
like
was
a
married to the son of someone who was quite famous, actually. But, the son, of course, he's in the shadow of his father. But no, I don't
yeah.
want to know anything about it. You know what? I have an expression that it's whose business is it? I got that from Byron Katie. Like, is it my business, her business, God's business?
Nobody's
who my wife
business.
slept with before is not my business. I can guarantee you it's not my business. And I don't want to
Yeah,
go through it. Now, here's something about red flags. So this
I
came
love it.
in from somebody about red flags. So here are some red flags. You tell me what you think. The man who hates his job. Okay, that's the first red flag. The man who hates his job. When he's unhappy with his job or his career path, or with the amount of money he's earning, things aren't going to be pretty when it comes to your romantic relationship. He won't want to commit, okay, because he's got to get things sorted out at work, or he's had a bad day, which is all the days, okay. Um, on the other hand, if you can stand it, you might be able to help him make an improvement or a change, but it's a red flag. That's a big red flag. What do you think about that? And I suppose it could be a woman that hates her job, but it's probably the man.
I
So
can
what
tell.
do you
Like
think
this
about
was
that?
definitely this was written by a woman who's really just saying, make sure you date a rich guy. Like that's what I'm
Oh,
hearing
really?
with this.
Oh, really? Uh-huh.
People hate their jobs. Like
They do?
most people, if given the option of making the exact same money working and not working, would choose not working. Most people are not working their dream job. That's just
Okay.
reality.
Okay.
They're and I grew up, my second half of my childhood, I grew up in Tennessee, and I grew up around people who worked in factories, okay,
Yeah.
or worked at the gas
Well,
station,
people
like hard job.
they don't really like their work. Those people they don't like their work.
And
They live for
why?
the
And
weekend.
nobody likes that, but you do it because you got to do what you got to do to take care of your
They live for the
family.
weekend. I know I had a job like that once. It's like and I understand why it was so boring. It was an office job, but it was so boring. Like you just live for Fridays. You live for
And there's
3 day
nothing,
weekends, even better. You live
there's
for the
nothing
five
wrong
o'clock
with
bell. No,
that.
well,
The
there's nothing
idea
wrong with
that
that.
he can't commit and I don't like that the second half of the red flag is like maybe you can change him for the better. Like that already
Yeah,
tells
I
you what
know
type of
that's a
person
good one,
this
isn't
is.
it?
It's like such a giveaway.
Try it.
So
Try it.
I always love when people list their red flags, they're always dumb. It's never like, oh, she asked me. Like a real red flag is like she asked me to commit a murder with her. That's
Oh,
a
you're gonna
great red.
love the second red flag then. The second red flag is the man who's obsessed with his mother. That's what she said. I've dated a
Yeah,
few men who are obsessed with their mothers, and there's not anything wrong with this, but it's a big problem, when it goes too far.
I agree.
Um, yeah,
That one I agree with.
yeah,
So I've seen, as you know, I love to watch the Indian Matchmaker. You turn me on to that. And there's a
yeah,
lot of
I love
guys
that
that
show.
they're too close to their moms, and their moms are like, I run the house. The new wife has to do
Yeah,
what I say. So that definitely,
yeah.
and there are guys who, um, a lot of modern women don't like wedding ceremonies because they don't understand what the things mean. Like they go, I don't want my dad to walk me down the aisle. And it's like, well, no, that represents that you choose when there's a fight between your husband and your dad, you choose your husband. When there's a conflict between my wife and my parents or my
You're
sisters,
interpreting that, but the real meaning of that is the woman was the burden to the father, to her parents, and now
agree.
they're giving up the burden of the woman to the husband. Now it's his problem. That was the real purpose of it.
But that's the same thing, right? And that you're just
Husband is like
exactly,
taking care of someone. Husband, like husbandry.
yeah, exactly. Like take care of my goat, exactly. But also
Yeah,
for the
that's
goat
right.
is like now I'm part of this tribe, not the old tribe. So you're just
Yeah,
looking
that's
from
right.
the man's perspective, not the woman's. I agree with both
Yeah,
of those things.
yeah.
But I mean is that there are men who, when there's a conflict between their mother and
Hmm.
their wife, will side with the mother. These men
Oh,
usually
okay.
have very low testosterone, very high voices like me, and they have a very, let's just say, cuck energy.
Okay.
So,
I see.
and usually this is, in my experiences, this is usually guys who come from money. It's not so often, you don't
Hmm.
see this as often with
Okay.
people that come from money, but
Comfortable, like sort of upper
experience,
class. Upper
I
class.
think that's a thing, and it's where the mom doesn't work, so she has time to have to form a weird relationship with their son, and there's definitely an issue. I think that is a legitimate. That's a much more legitimate red flag because it means it's going
I
to
think you
affect
see
you.
this in men that are have single mothers. And sometimes,
There's
especially only children.
it's much more common when
Yeah,
now you're talking about.
yeah.
I know women who there's a single mother and they'll say things like, "Oh, this is my boyfriend," and they'll introduce their son. They say that kind of stuff, or like,
Oh,
"Where
oh,
I'm
that's
married to my
weird.
son." All of that language,
Jeez. Oh, that's awful.
but it's very common, right? You see
Yeah.
that. Oh, I
Yeah,
don't
well,
date
it's
anyone.
like
I've
you
already
and me
got a man.
against the world. She's with her son. It's like them against the world. They have a
That's
very,
yeah.
very
The
tight
saying he's my
bond.
little boyfriend is way worse than
It's way
it's like
worse.
so
It's
much
way
worse.
worse.
My
I'm just
little
saying
husband.
I could see the concept. So the next one is the next red flag is the man who needs to be admired. She says, I've dated my share of men who need to be admired by every woman on the planet, the waitress, his hot work colleague, ex, any woman really. I know too well. It means feeling like I'm second best. So he's got more women on his speed dial than Charlie Sheen. He's busy flirting with the waitress, the bartender, the shop assistant, and you're left sitting there, with resentment, which is fine, okay? Because this type of man doesn't cheat on you all that much, she says. Not sure that's true. The trouble is these sorts of men never change. So you're always faced with competition, always having someone that's going to be there to put a wedge in your relationship. Maybe you want to find someone else. So what do you think about that one? The man who needs to be admired by other women.
A lot of guys.
Yeah.
A lot of. So it's hard to know the line between friendliness and flirting.
Yeah.
But it's the same as a second red flag. It's like, oh, we're in situations where I feel like he's putting me second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To his mother or someone else. The next one. The man who has friends you never meet. I've yet to date a man who refuses to introduce me to his friends, but okay. I often meet a man's friends pretty early on to gauge whether or not he's a good guy, and if they, the friends, are aware that I'm even in the picture. But him never letting you meet his friends, that's plain creepy. I think I agree with her.
So let's say I was dating this woman. I probably wouldn't want my friends to meet her. She sounds awful.
Well, that's a red flag. She's got too many red flags.
It's like maybe she doesn't realize that she's the red flag. It's like you ever date someone who you like them, but your friends are going to just like torture you about it?
Well, like she's 20 years older, for example, and I'm 18 and she's 38. Yeah, I can understand that.
Or she's just like, you're like a motorcycle guy and she's like a fancy pants girl. Like what I mean? Like
just so out of your class. Yeah,
you're from different. You're just from different cliques. So
different. Completely.
I understand that, and also listen. If I knew
your friends are going to tease you, they're never going to let up on you.
I would never let her meet my friends. A lot of my friends in college and high school were terrible.
Yeah.
The idea that
you kind of want a new start. You kind of want to leave those behind, right? Like,
just the idea that you're the sum total of the friendships you have from high school. Like that's a silly way to judge a man. It's like, oh, you're amazing, but you went to high school with a guy who's not that cool. So this is more of a red flag about her. I understand if like.
Well, I think if he doesn't show anything about his past at all, that's a red flag, right? I mean, a man that doesn't show his past.
How much time is he spending with these friends, right? If he's like, let's say he's hanging out with his friends 2 times a week, but like he has you drop him off 2 blocks away and all that stuff, then you have a problem. But if somebody sees once a year or whatever. Yeah. So there's a spectrum, right? There's a situation where it's not a big deal, and a situation where, because we talked earlier today, right, about a guy who's like, oh, he's hanging out with his best friend all the time in the basement. They always lock the door. That's a Brokeback type situation. So there's a spectrum. So it's hard to gauge because this woman has so many bad relationships. I feel like that's why no one wants her to meet their friends.
The next one is the man who wants to rescue you. Every bloke likes to be the knight in shining armor and to be the one to rescue their girlfriend if she runs into trouble. It's a man's DNA. Okay. But, there's an aversion that women have, which I understand. They want to find their independence, but it's been curtailed by someone who wants to rescue them and knows best and all of that. I don't think that's a red flag, personally.
No, she's awful. So,
yeah.
I saw a video the other day from
a very sweet and wonderful quality that men have if they're helping a woman and rescuing her, really. Maybe they're not very smart to do it, but...
There's a lot of women now who like get upset if you open the door for them. They're like, what, you think I'm not strong enough to open the door for me? And then I saw a video from another woman this week who's like, those women need to shut up because I want a guy to be nice to me. So stop complaining when a guy...
I would say if she said that to me, I'd say, no, but I do like looking at your butt when you're in front of me. So I'm going to continue opening the door and looking at your butt.
Well, see, what I would say, let's say I opened the door for a woman and she said something to me and she'd go, why you open the door for me, Dada? I said, listen, I don't like to have monsters behind me. I'd rather have a monster in front of me. Keep going. Like,
right. You got to have these lines. Now you have a few lines you can use next time that you have that remark from a woman.
Like, sorry, I didn't realize you could open a door with hooves. So it's not the great way to go. Like, I just assumed your hooves would have trouble with the door, but I'm glad you can open it yourself. But there are women who have really calibrated against anything is interpreted.
Yeah. Yeah,
If a guy pays
calibrate.
for
Yeah,
dinner, oh,
they're
you
on
think I can't pay
alert.
for myself?
They're on alert.
Oh, I like your
Yeah.
haircut. Oh, you think I need your affirmation? So
That's
there's
not a
a
rescue. That's ridiculous. Yeah, I know. That's ridiculous.
so what she's talking about, but there's also the thing of like, and I've also seen the thing where the guy really is like, oh, I only date poor women because then I can have enough power to
yeah,
rescue them, whatever. I don't know. I mean,
I mean,
my wife and I have
I-
such an economic disparity that I'm guilty of this one, and it's
yeah, I
just
mean,
like,
yeah, I could see that. I mean, that's better. We talked about this. We said, remember, we were talking about the study that showed that men and women who have similar incomes, the men are much more likely to have erectile dysfunction. If there's a big disparity in income, either way, either he makes a little and she makes a lot, or she makes a little and he makes a lot, the sex is much, much better. It's like when they're equal, it's not so good.
yeah,
So,
I think that a lot of women pursue independence, and then when they hit late 30s, they realize that they've been tricked because
yeah,
they're
they've been
independent.
tricked.
They have no kids, no one loves them, and they spend most of their time saying that like a guy should want a woman in her late 30s because she won't put up with his stuff and she can see through his stuff. And it's like, well, none of that sounds nice to me. Like
She
there's
spends a
all this
lot of time. Hopefully, she has girlfriends that she can be hang with. Hopefully, to not be lonely.
because,
Um,
but that's I think that's one of the great tricks of modern culture is that
yeah,
we've just the way we describe certain things like independence is like my wife is not dependent on me. We're partners. We
no, but
have
you
a
know what? We're told that look down on people like your wife or my wife if she's staying home with the kids. That's like, how could you be? That's not a real career as a mother. You
Yeah,
know,
and I
you,
so that's the one thing I
it's
don't
BS.
think being a mom is the hardest job in the world. Like I know Oprah said that. Obviously, working on an oil rig is way harder, right? Or being a miner is way harder and more dangerous. But I do think it's what my wife does is more important than what I do. All I do is bring in money and ask my kids who they love more, right? Ask
I
my
don't
kids
think it's more important, but I understand what you're saying. But
what,
they're very important jobs, and if it
well,
wasn't
one
done,
of
we
the
wouldn't
jobs
have
is make sure everyone
civilization.
can eat, and one of the jobs make sure your kids don't grow up to be monsters, right? Like so, there's they matter, and the
Yeah,
influence of
they
parent,
do.
like the mom, the way they affect the kids is so important. There's a really good study about self-esteem. Most
Hmm.
people who have low self-esteem, their moms worked because when they have a nanny or daycare,
You're right.
when you're at
Right.
daycare, there's one person watching six kids.
You're not important to one person. Like
Exactly.
we
So
really have to
that's how
grow
you
up, be
develop
really
your sense
important,
of ego.
really care. There's one person that's attachment to one person, and when she's working all the time, it's
Yeah.
I could see that self-esteem being a problem. The next one is this. Is the next one, the man who puts work first. Okay, this can be a bit of an issue, but it's about timing. If he's at the beginning of his career and working his way up the corporate ladder, good for him. Be supportive, enjoy it, revel in his success.
My
But
gosh.
if he's nowhere near the beginning and he's married to his work, he has no time to court you, date you, or help you when you're in need, you might want to rethink this relationship. That's what she
So
says.
these red flags are inconsistent. The last one was I don't want a man to try and save me, and now it's like why isn't he there to help me when I'm in need?
Well,
Right?
he puts his work first. He goes, "Honey, I got to do this trial. You know, I'm on trial right now. I've got to work this weekend. You know, I have to go through the exhibits for the trial for next week. You know, like that. Like being married to a lawyer
So
who works 90 hours a
yeah,
week.
I think it's interesting because remember the very first one was like, oh, I don't want a man who's not successful. Now, I want him to be successful but not work hard,
On
right? So
my
it's two,
terms."
so these are two inconsistencies, right, that have
Yeah,
caught
that's
up.
true.
And this is what happens because she's mixing different guys she dated and not realizing that she's and this is something that women are pretty good at, which is logical inconsistencies. I think that you
Yeah.
have to decide what you want. And if you want a guy with a lot of money, unless he inherited it, he's got to work. I work a lot of hours. Someone last night was messaging me. He's like, "Oh, why are you working at night? You should go to bed so you can get rest. Otherwise, you'll die young." And I was like, "Listen, man, I got 4 kids. You don't have any kids. You're not married. How about you don't give me advice, right? Like, and I have to operate on USA hours for my interviews. I have a radio interview after this. I have another podcast interview later. Like, that's just part of the game. That's part of the decision I made about where I live. So a lot of people like to give work advice to people that are in different situations. And the same woman, if that guy stopped working as much, and in fact, I have an amazing one about this where um this what happened is I thought this was a really good one is
Yeah.
that
Let's hear it.
my wife was complaining about like that I don't help enough around the house. Even though I do more than half the chores, I make breakfast, I make dinner, I do everything. So I said to my boss, listen, I'm under a lot of stress. You got to cut back my hours. And so he cuts back his hours so that he
Hmm.
can do all the chores around the house. And then she goes, "Oh, I
Oh my
finally got my
gosh.
train." And then she goes, "Hey, I need money to do this." And he goes, "Oh, there's no money. I had to work. I'm working less hours so I could do your job
Yeah.
too." And she
Sure.
goes, "Oh, I see. You're trying to trick me." And that's what can happen is that you have to realize the two things are connected, that there's only so many hours in the day. You either want him to spend time with you or you
Hmm.
want the money. You can't have
Right.
both.
Get at both, right? Not necessarily. Yeah.
What's the next red flag?
The
Fire
last
that.
red flag is the man who can't believe you picked him. I
Oh,
love
that's it.
this sort of man. True, sometimes their insecurities get in the way of them having a good time, but wouldn't you rather be with a man who adores and appreciates you instead of, someone else who doesn't give two hoots about the fact he's with you? The man you're with should think you're the ultimate catch and thank his lucky stars every day that he's caught a woman as wonderful as you. And if he turns around and tells you that you're not relationship marriage material, forget him. He simply wasn't the right man for you in the first place. I know that's easier said than done, but,
So,
you know, yeah. The man who can't believe you picked him. That's what she
okay.
says. That's a
So
red flag, according to her. But not really.
yeah, she's so much dumber than I thought.
Well,
So whoever,
inconsistent,
no, this changes because this
feminine.
red flag is the number one indicator that a relationship is going to end is when one person says to the other, "I can't believe you chose me."
Oh, absolutely. That's the
There,
kiss of death. That's
yeah.
it. You're over. It's over. You might as well just
And for
leave.
her to, so she goes, "I want a guy to say that." She literally says, "I want a guy to give me the Judas kiss," right? Like I want to get the kiss right before you get turned over to the police is what she's asking for. So that changes everything because that's so wrong. It's literally the exact opposite of good advice.
Yeah, I agree with
When
you.
you have a disparity in perception and you can think your partner's more better looking than you, all of that stuff is fine. The second you say, "I don't know why you chose me," the relationship will end 100% of the time. It's unsurvivable. It's a sniper's bullet aimed at the heart of the relationship. Now, you might last a couple more weeks. You won't last longer than that, but the relationship is over.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know why. I just know that once it gets said, I don't know if you can maintain the relationship if you think it but don't say it. But if
I
you
think what
think,
you're when you say that, you're irrevocably offending the other person's self worth. Because if they're with you and you don't know, and you're too good for them, then why are they with you? It just affects
yeah,
they go, yeah, why am I with this person? I am
yeah,
better than they are.
this is a really bad way to think. And it just, even if you think the person, like, you can't believe they chose you, just keep your mouth shut. This is another thing. Don't talk about it. Once you say it, the relationship's over. I don't know if you can think it, but not say it and survive. But if you say it, it's definitely over.
I think, though, the other issue that men will have is, let's say that a man is with a woman that's really, really, let's say, out of his league. He has to maintain high self-esteem and realize his value. Um, it's really easy to stop being a challenge. And if he does that, he's not attractive anymore. So, um, that's not. It's masculine to be confident and know your value, and that's what women are attracted to. And the minute you say otherwise, it's the end. So I have one that came in. I wanted to chat with you about. Um, this is actually another one by a woman. She said they connected because they both train rescue dogs, and they
Red
were
flag.
working together. Yeah, and so she thought that Dan was her soulmate until recently. But a couple months ago, his friend gets divorced, and he starts hanging out with his friend. You know, but now it's sort of like he's become withdrawn and evasive. He's been staying out more with Bill, the friend, but claims everything's fine. And then I notice a nude photo of what can only be his unit showing up that he was sending to Bill. And I confront Dan and he denies it. He claims it's spam. He gets very angry. He says I invaded his privacy and I shouldn't be looking at his iPad. So what should I do?
So I feel like your wife can identify your penis. So saying that's not mine, that's someone else's is like a tricky
This
one. That's a
spam.
tricky.
It's some spam penis.
Yeah, that's not what spam is. So I like this question a lot. I mean, I think that him and Bill are probably sleeping together. Like I
Yeah,
feel like
seems
she's
like it.
married to a gay guy. However,
No.
as we were talking about earlier today, like there's scenarios where you would send a picture of your penis to a friend. And a couple of those scenarios are you found something weird, right? Like I just found a black dot on it, right? Or I found something weird on it, or I don't know if my
And I
penis.
wouldn't be sending it to my friend. I would be going to a doctor myself if I had something weird.
Yeah, but
I
that's the
did have
thing.
something like that. I
That's your
did go to a doctor.
generation. You don't have. I have definitely shown my penis to a lot. When I was younger, most of my friends had seen it. So it depends on the age of the
Okay.
guy.
Okay.
When I was in high school and college, everyone saw it. You know what I mean? It wasn't a big deal. And I remember in high school, I showed it to a guy to find out if I was big or small. He had a ruler, and he was like an older guy, and
Right.
it wasn't sexual at all. I was like, listen, and he goes, here's how you measure it. Yeah, maybe I didn't show it to him. Maybe he had me measure and bring him the piece of paper that I'd drawn it, like I'd outlined it on,
Yeah.
like a
That
Thanksgiving
makes more
turkey.
sense. Right.
But yeah, so if it's that, if you're trying to figure out, like, if you have a question about it, but that doesn't sound like but a picture is
This is a
different.
situation
A
where the
picture is
guy
like
is
a bit of a trail because he
he's
not only did
having
he
an
send
affair
me
with
a
his
picture,
friend.
he
Sure
took a
seems
picture
like
with the
it.
iPad, which means bad
Yeah.
lighting, bad camera angle. And he sent it over, and he kept it. Like, you didn't
Yeah.
destroy the evidence, so there's a lot going on here. The other possibility, here's a possibility. Hey, Bill, remember last week when you and me got a couple of prostitutes? I just got a rash, picture of the
Mhm.
rash.
I see. Yeah, you're
So
right. There's other
it could
explanations.
be up
Yeah.
to a different type.
They're
It might not.
they're not good from her point of view. They're not good.
Oh, it's
but they're
bad.
still.
It's like, or it could be, hey, Bill, what did you do to me last week? You gave me head, and now I've got this mark on it. Right? So
Uh,
no, none of these are possible. She definitely needs to relationship, but it's
so I
interesting.
always think I think I really think and people are confronted with something and then they attack you, that always means that they're guilty. They
So
say,
guilty.
"How dare you invade my privacy? How could you look at my iPad?" That means they're guilty. Guilty people will attack the other person, and there's decision where they don't address the matter itself.
There's a thing.
So
Okay, there's a fetish I want to talk to you about, and it's called penis rating. Not something I've
Oh.
participated in, but on OnlyFans and other sites, you can pay a woman
Mhm.
you send her a picture of your penis and she rates it.
Oh.
Gives you I guess a score of 1 to 10.
Do you have to send it? Is it flaccid or erect when you send it, or does it matter? Is it both, or just want to see how this
Great
works?
question. I feel like I've made an assumption erect, but you could be right that like maybe
Okay.
you pay for two
Maybe
ratings.
both. Maybe both. Okay, so it rates
And
in
it's
different
It's big
situations.
business. It's a
I
lot of
haven't
guys.
heard of that.
It's huge. And
What's in it for them? What's in it for the
Well-
guy? Honestly, for doing that, like, why would a guy?
there's a
bother with that?
subcategory of a guy who wants the girl to negative. She wants him to be like her to be like,
Oh, you have a small one. It's terrible. Like he gets off on the humiliation aspect of it.
wow, you're going right
I
to
see.
small. That's pretty mean. So I don't know.
Well, I'm
You
just
know,
I'm
like,
humiliation. That's what I've
I
heard.
want the woman to be mean to me. There's all these variations of that, like submissiveness.
Okay.
So it could be that he's like, "Hey, Bill, I'm gonna rate my penis," or "Bill, say a bunch of mean stuff about my penis."
I
And
think
you're
we
like,
all agree that there are not too many innocent explanations, and probably since he attacked her, invading his privacy and all that, that means pretty much that it's what it
but
seems
listen,
to
but
be.
this is where I'm going with that. Maybe
Okay.
he said it's spam because he didn't want to go. Listen, babe, you always refuse to rate my penis. I finally found
Okay.
someone, but I don't.
Finally
Right?
found someone who did. Yeah.
He hasn't cheated
Yeah.
on her.
Because I've asked you many times, and you refuse to rate it. I've given you the form. I've
Well, let me
told
ask
you
you
to
a
fill,
question.
and you won't fill it out.
How many times has your wife rated your penis? Because for me, it's 0. My wife has literally never done it.
It's below. I would say it's close to 0. I think
Yeah,
pretty much
that's-
0.
so
Yeah.
We're actually both. I mean, I guess our wives are lucky we haven't met Bill because we'd be blasted in pictures right now. Maybe he's like
Okay.
the best.
I've told you this before. I have, I had a basically a call-in show for a while, and I had men that would call in. This is for our membership. We have a large membership base, and they would tell me they had a lover. They were happily married, and they had some guy that would visit, and they had an affair with this guy, and it wasn't that uncommon actually. And they were married a long time, and they loved their wives, and they didn't want to ever jeopardize the marriage, and it was a hidden thing. I don't understand the need for men to do this, but it's not that uncommon either, apparently.
Okay.
So
Let me ask you a question.
yeah.
This is good. In the past, being gay was something you did, right? So it's like now it's become something you are.
Okay.
So, for example, like in Greek times, remember in the Greeks, they would say, "Oh, there's nothing as strong as a love between an older man and a younger man."
Yeah.
You wouldn't
Yeah.
be gay, but sometimes you would do gay stuff. So it
Right.
didn't become your identity.
There was a
So,
passage of life, and some people's anthropological studies have shown that it's a rite of passage. Some boys will have sex with men as a certain period in their life. It's in certain
it's just like
cultures.
anyone who went to a private school in England.
Yeah.
It's like a huge part of their culture. Uh, so it's the main. You think that's what the Revolutionary War is about? It's like no, we don't want to have to do this in school. We're getting rid of that's what we're really fighting against. But I think so. I want that's the thing is that like it used to be, oh, you could do this, but it didn't become, oh, now you're officially gay. So maybe you're
Yeah.
right. I think that's
I'm
interesting. So
not gay or
maybe
anything. Yeah, I have my unit in some guy, but I'm
who
not gay.
cares what he's getting up to when he's not around, right? Like, okay, so you know what I mean? It doesn't affect her, other than he's being weird about it. But yeah, so I mean, the real answer is they got to break up. Like, she's got to get out of this relationship. The relationship's over. So it
Yep.
just is.
Don't get married. What do you have a question for me?
I do. So, 49-year-old man, got 3 kids. My oldest is a son. When I was a kid, my dad was abusive. He beat up my mom, and I have 3 younger sisters, and I used to make him beat me up so that he wouldn't hurt my sisters.
Oh, awful.
Got to the point he finally went to jail, and we moved away. So I grew up in an
Yeah.
abusive situation. My son, who's 24, and then my daughters are 21 and 17. My son's girlfriend came into the house with a black eye and a bloody lip, and I go, "What happened?" And she didn't want to tell me at first. Eventually, she goes, "Well, your son beat me up." The son comes home and has like marks on his hands. And he's like, "Hey, anything you want to tell me?" He's like, "Oh, no, everything's fine. Nothing's going on. I haven't, so everything's fine. My girlfriend's busy with work. I haven't seen her in a while." And I go, "Oh, that's interesting." And I go, "Listen, you need to stop BSing me." And then I just beat him without mercy. The girlfriend comes downstairs and stops him because he's probably going to kill his son. She's like, beating up, maybe that's going to happen. I didn't hold back. I wanted to teach him what it's like to get beat since he thought it was okay to do it to a woman. So there's part of people that hear this story and they go, "Oh, this guy is a hero because he's yada yada." But also, there's like 3 traumas happening at the same time, right? There's this guy who's reliving his dad abusing him, and now he's abusing his son. The second
Yeah.
thing is the girlfriend walks down and gets to see, oh, maybe this is where the boyfriend learned how to hit me, right? She might miss.
That's right.
I don't think she wants to see an abuse, a fight, right? A blood.
No. No. That's a
So there's all
terrible
these things
story for
happening.
every
Now, the other
aspect.
thing is that
Yeah.
there was no trial. He didn't ask the son. Because my first thought was like, boy, I hope she didn't make it up because that's horrible. Because I feel like you should be really sure that your son actually did this before you beat him up. But I get where he's coming from. I also don't think it's the right thing to do. He's like, you're lucky she told me and not her dad, because her dad would have you dig your own grave. Like, so I have a feeling this guy must be Russian, because I know that's what they do
Yeah.
in Eastern
Yeah.
Europe. That's what can happen. So what do you think about this and this scenario? Now, I've got sons and daughters, so I think about this all the time. Like, this is a nightmare scenario for a father, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a nightmare scenario. I don't feel it's ever okay just to start beating somebody up. It's terrible. So it's just the only innocent party here is the girl, apparently, the girlfriend.
I hope.
Yeah.
I hope that she didn't make it up or that something else. You want to see things at face value, but he didn't investigate enough to be sure. He just went straight to it. That's why I'm like nervous about this story. But
Yeah.
I don't know. So this is one where I don't know the right answer. That's why I'm asking, because I don't know. Do you go to the police and then you put your son in jail and then his life is ruined forever? Is it,
No, I don't think you do.
do you, but here's the thing. There's 2 of these. Here's one from a mom. So my son is
Okay.
17. He's been dating a girl for 2 years. She came in with a black eye and split lip.
Mhm.
So I kicked my son out of the house and was
Mhm.
like, "I don't want you in here. I don't know you anymore. Go
Mhm.
go stay with your grandparents for a while because I can't even look at you."
Hmm.
So her parents were out of town while this happened. So she was watching, the girlfriend was staying at their house, which is kind of crazy. We're going out of town, let our girlfriend stay at her boyfriend's house, but that's what was happening. So she's
But
like,
he's not there though. He's not in the house anymore because he was kicked
no,
out.
she kicked him out. And it's like, well, should I be the one to tell her parents? Do I help her tell her parents? Like, how do I break this cycle? So
Well,
she's like, I'm not kicking him out forever, but I mean,
I think that it's not a loving thing to do to just kick this boy out of the house. He needs help. He needs something else. I mean, if he's abusing his girlfriend, he needs help himself so he can control his temper and stop doing that. And I don't think just kicking him out is a good approach. I'm not usually, always in favor of therapy, but in this case, he might benefit from some behavioral modification therapy to help him, role play and deal with this next time so he doesn't do that anymore. I don't
there's
think
a
he's
lot of
beyond redemption. He's just got a problem.
there's this thing that like there's a high probability that if someone's abusive, then they were probably abused. Like, what I mean?
Yeah,
There's like cycle perpetuates and
yeah,
it becomes
that's right.
when you're 12, whatever happened to you before you're 12 becomes what you're attracted to. So you actually become addicted or that's how it perpetuates, unfortunately, right? So
Okay.
there's a possibility then that this guy, right, had a bad experience. And I mean, you don't always know exactly what
No,
happened. These are complicated situations. For all we know, the girlfriend attacked him with a hammer. Probably not, but I'm just saying we
no,
don't
I
know
don't
for
think
sure.
so. I doubt
But
it. Yeah, let's
there's
assume
always
that
a
that wasn't the case.
possibility, right?
The
So
usual story is she does something he doesn't like, and he'll say, "Oh, you provoked me." That's But I mean, there's never a reason to hit somebody,
yeah, I mean, it just that's
unless
the
they're
thing is
hitting you.
again, you have
It's
these
only
stories where it's really complicated. You weren't there, so you don't know for
maybe
sure
she
who.
hit him. Maybe she starts beating him up.
There's a lot of that's the thing. There's a lot of where the woman will hurt the man, and
Yeah,
the police won't do anything. But if the man hits her back, he'll go to jail. So he's in a
yeah, it's
no-win
very
situation.
common. Women are abusing men too. Very common now. They don't ever get in trouble for it.
So,
I have one here.
yeah, you have a
I've
happy
been
one.
dating Jenny, happier one, sort of. Well, Jenny, 3 years now, and we met in college, and we just have a love of design, graphic design, and she graduated, and she got an amazing offer for a big New York City design firm. And so the plan is for her to take the job, and then I would be joining her later. So in the meantime, I'm freelancing back in Ohio, and so we're doing the long distance thing, and we visit each other when we can. We talk every day, but lately I found that our calls are getting shorter. I'm asking her about moving plans and whatever we to talk about it. She doesn't want to talk about it. And last time when I was in New York, she was distressed. She said, "Oh, I've got to work on a project," so she cut our night short. So look, I know you have to let people pursue their career dreams, but I feel like she's prioritizing her new life. Am I just being insecure? Should I be patient? Or is this relationship just going down the drain? I don't want to lose the woman that I want to marry.
So when you read that story, at which word did you know their relationship was over?
Um, Well, when I made the long distance thing work for a while, I said, okay, it's over.
Oh, so okay, that's interesting because to me, when the second he said she moved to New York, I knew they were over.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
I do know somebody. I have some friends who did have a relationship this way in different countries, and they ended up getting married, and they were happy together.
let
So
me
it's
ask you a
and
specific question. The one was the woman, did she move to a bigger city?
no,
Okay. So I believe that if you're in a small town and you move to the big city,
hmm
then the relationship's
hmm
guaranteed dead. Whoever moves to the bigger city. I
right.
don't
I
know
see.
if one of you moves from the big city to the small town, if the relationship can survive that. I haven't thought about that, but for sure, she went from a town where there are limited options to a town where there are tons of options. You know what people say is like, "Oh, why are you still with that hillbilly? Why are you still with that small town guy?" Vice versa,
Right.
right? So
Right.
I remember this is really at college. So many people come to college in a long-term relationship, and then they all within a year break up. You
Hmm.
know,
Oh
it
yeah, they
always
do the high school sweetheart thing. That never works.
just one out of a million or whatever. So this
One
relationship, the
out of a
second
million.
he
Yeah.
let her move to New York, the relationship ended. Not that he should have held her
Yeah.
back. The second she left, he just it's kind of like this. Like their relationship got a fatal disease, and he just hasn't figured it out yet. But it's been dying for a long time. You long distance relationships are already high risk, but as soon as you're in the category of where she moved to the big city, so she went from a town where maybe she gets head on once a week to a town where she gets 50 options a day. And I guarantee you that project that she had to get off the phone to work on was some other dude's big D.
Yeah. Well, they have an expression in investing. When every day you wake up and you look at your stock portfolio, you should ask yourself, would I buy this stock today? And if you wouldn't buy it today, then you should sell it today, right? So she's in New York and she's thinking every day, you know, should I stay with that guy? Would I be with that guy who's somewhere? I can't even really remember him very well because I haven't seen him lately. Would I
Well,
or would I date him today, or would I be dating other people here, other men around here? And her answer is clearly, other men.
let me put
So
it this way. Let's say you and me are living in New York. We're roommates now. You have a girlfriend back in Alaska or whatever. And you
mhm.
have two choices tonight. You can go with me to the opera, or you can sit at home and talk to her on Zoom. Think about that. The competition isn't just other guys. The competition is everything that you can do that's fun in New York. Hey, do you want to go see Phantom of the Opera? No, I got to stay home and Skype my girlfriend. Hey, do you want to go see a magician? Right? Hey, do you want to go to a nightclub where a really
Mhm.
famous band is performing for
Right,
$2? Like there's so many.
right,
That's the
yeah.
bigger problem is that,
Well, then there's the parties. You're going to meet women there.
yeah. So you're,
She's going to meet men in New York. She's meeting all these men all the time. She's
yeah,
working
you're
closely with
competing with,
some of them. She's getting crushes on them, and it's just inevitable. So,
yeah.
you
So
know,
there's so many
it
reasons
happens.
for her to not want to be on the phone with you. It's not just another guy. It could be like, oh, I can go see the Empire State Building. I can go see fireworks. Like I can go so many fun things to do, especially because she moved to there, so they're all new experiences.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's why I knew as soon as you said move to New York, I was like, well, this relationship ended. There's nothing you can do. This whole idea of we're in college together and I'll do this job and then
Hmm.
she'll move there and then it will work out. Like, nah, man, it was over. This you should have if you wanted to stay
Yeah.
together. And here's the thing. If they'd moved to New York together, the relationship would also be over. It wouldn't have saved it. I don't think so.
Well, I think
Because
it's possible that if they got married in Ohio and then moved together in New York, they'd be together. I mean, I think that
they'd
would
have a
be
chance.
workable.
They would have higher chances in
Yeah.
a long term
Yeah.
relationship. But yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
So let's talk about money. I'm 20, my boyfriend's 21. We don't live together, been together for about a year or two. And I've always made more money than him. I've been independent since I'm 18. I rent my own apartment, own my car, have a dog, pay for my own food, pay for everything, right? So when the car breaks down, I pay for it 90% of the time. I have an old junker. Sometimes my dad helps me one out of 10 times, a little bit, but mostly it's me. So I don't make a lot of money. I work 65 hours a week at a fast food job. Then now I work at 45 hours at another fast food job and I have a second job that's 12 hours a week. So she's working 60 hours a week. I have a lot of respect for this. That's a hard job, right?
Right.
And she says, "We don't live together. We don't have any joint finances. I live on my own. He lives with his mom. And we used to work together at the first fast food restaurant. And now he's there. He still works there. He works the same hours as her. He's working 65 hours a week. And then he spends the week every weekend he stays at my place. But whenever we hang out, I'm expected to pay for everything. Whenever he gets a paycheck, he spends it within a week. I've tried to teach him to be, fastidious and stretch it out, but it's like he spends the money on video games, snacks, whatever, and the money's gone. Whereas she's more financially responsible, but and then she ends up having to pay for him. And then he is an extravagant gift giver. And so I feel like, and I'm like, hey, instead of giving me things, how about you just pay for half the restaurants and stuff? So what she's talking about, and I think this is interesting, is a person who is fiscally irresponsible and how it can actually, and even in how he gives gifts, where he goes, oh, I spent all my money in gifts, but then you don't have money to pay for the other things. It doesn't really,
Yeah.
I end up paying for my own
Right.
gift anyways.
Right.
So they're both making similar money. She makes a little bit more money, but not a lot. But she's like, how do I tell him I don't want this? She said, I won't even
Well,
consider
when she,
living with you until you have a savings. Like you have to have a savings of $7,000 before I'll
well, I
even.
think she should just tell him that. Just
She
tell
did
him
tell
that.
him that, but
Yeah.
he's, and she's like, well, should I break up with him because he won't?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's people grow up eventually. He may never grow up, but he's not grown up yet. He's living with his mother. He hasn't differentiated from his family. So he's anything can happen. He's got to grow up, and meanwhile, she's much more mature. Women are probably 3 or 4 years ahead of men, as until some point, maybe in the late 20s. Don't you think, in terms of maturity?
Yeah. I think this is why older men and younger women make sense so that the guy and the
Yeah.
woman are similar
Right.
maturity level. I
Yeah.
used to see there's this common thing women say is like, oh, if someone's, this is what the women in 30s will say, like, why would you date a woman who's 18? She doesn't have the same experience as you. Like, we can't talk about because you didn't grow up watching the same TV shows. It's like that's the glue that holds together a relationship. That's when you know someone is like out of touch. So, um, but I think that's one of the things. Like, my wife and I have a pretty large age difference, and we just have. She was much more serious about taking care of herself at a younger age than I was. So there's that. Like, so I think
Well, she
that,
grew up much earlier than you did.
yeah,
She had
and I
to.
think that's
Yeah.
common
Yeah.
for women. When
And
people say,
women, I mean, from the time, they're 13, 14, 15, they start having periods, they can get pregnant. So they have to be much more mature anyway because, they have the ability to get pregnant and have a child and all of that. Men are just like, oh, whatever, you're boys.
all
So
right,
that's the natural order of things. And I think our brains develop. And eventually he might become a person that is good with money and all of that. But, you know, she might not want to be his mother. You know, this is seeming like a mommy kind of relationship, don't you think? Like she's with somebody who's a kid is very irresponsible and she wants him to grow up and she's
yeah.
got has these
So
financial requirements for him and it's like that's not good. You can't respect somebody, a man like that if you feel that way about him, in my
no,
opinion. So
because
how
all
would
that will
she?
happen, let's say he changes and he
Yeah,
gets responsible, she'll just think, oh, he did his homework. She won't see him as independent. She'll see him as now I'm
yeah.
the. All right, I've got one more for you. This one is really
One
interesting.
more and then we will call it a day. Okay.
In the past 5 years, I've been dating and trying to seek a serious relationship. This is from a woman. I found that most of the men I meet are only interested in sleeping together or the possibility of it. Even if I wait till we've gone on multiple dates, as soon as we sleep together, they lose interest in me, and they're not looking for long-term commitment. I feel frustrated and uninterested in investing time and effort into dating. I have a negative view of men in general now, and I'm struggling with my feeling towards them. I thought, at some point I thought that perhaps it's because most of the guys I'm meeting are from dating apps or Instagram,
Hmm.
but even men I've met organically are awful. Well, I know not
Yeah.
all men are like this. My experiences are consistently in this way. Even men I meet on Reddit are the same
Even
way.
Reddit? Even Reddit? Oh, come now.
So my
Surely
first
you
thought was maybe
jest.
she try meeting men on 4chan. Let's go to the one website that's worse.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
I'm starting to
Or
think maybe
Daily
men struggle
Stormer.
along forever, but it makes me so sad because my friends are in normal relationships. Maybe I'm the problem. It's so tiring. What do you think?
Well, there's a woman that writes in, and it's a similar question. She says that I feel like I have to strive for perfection because that's what men see on social media. How can I keep up with the young filtered Instagram models? They're expecting the perfect woman. They see these random, as a bikini and lingerie photos, and I'm supposed to compete with that? Is that a similar question, you think?
Well, it sounds like this is one of the Instagram models, right? Because the way she's meeting guys on Instagram. Here's what I know.
Hmm.
This woman is dating, and I hate to get pulled to this. She's only dating Chads, right?
What's a Chad?
Big chin, big Adam's apple, like that, like a guy who's a top. Because women only swipe to the top 5% of men.
I mean, a
So she,
chiseled, masculine, classic masculine look, you mean?
so of course, once they sleep with her, they're not going to look for a relationship because she's attracting short-term type guys, dating websites, Instagram
Hmm.
guys. You think that a guy like me gets messages from women on Instagram? Like, come on now. Unless I have a picture of me in front of a car with gull wing doors, it's not going to happen. So what she's doing is based on what she said here, she's dating based on short term attractive characteristics. Does he have money? Does he have a nice car? Does he have, because that's what you can show on Instagram. You can't show your personality. Instagram's not a bunch of pictures of him taking care of babies and hanging out with his mom. I guarantee you that, right? A bunch of pictures with his shirt
Right.
off.
I see what you mean.
And so dating apps and Instagram, they're bad ways to meet people. People complain about it, but they won't stop doing it.
So she's dating somebody based on materialist factors, and then she's like upset that they're materialists.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a similar. Yeah. I mean, yeah. This other woman says, "How can I keep up with this? You know, how can I keep up with them?" It's like everyone presenting their best foot forward on Instagram or whatever that doesn't reflect any kind of reality.
So when I was single, I learned never give a woman my Facebook. Because once
Yeah.
a woman my Facebook, I would be over. It would just kill whatever there was.
That's interesting. Really?
I was just like because
But we did a course called Social Media Dominator. Remember that?
yeah, and that's why I modified my Facebook significantly, right? I had to change a lot before doing that, but that's my point is that if you want to, you have to treat your Facebook and your social media profiles like a business. And it's kind of like if your LinkedIn profile is all about you being an entrepreneur and you apply for jobs, no one's going to hire you because they go, well, your LinkedIn profile says this is what you want, right? Or if your LinkedIn profile is all about job A, but you want job B. So your social media profiles become your resume. And what you put out is what the bait you put out is the type of fish you will attract.
So you should package your social media with the impression that you want to leave other people rather than what pleases you personally.
Yeah. So if all of your pictures of social media are about you having a huge dong, then you're going to attract the type of woman who, and there's a lot of women, you're going to attract yourself a nice size queen who only cares about that. And then you go, it's so weird.
May not be the deepest person in the world or the most interesting, but you know,
if you have a huge
that's
dong,
who you're attracting.
you need to find a deep person. I think that's exactly what you need to find. So if you date for that, then you can't ask for other characteristics. And that's why a lot of people, they get in these relationships where they chose a woman because of her boobs or her butt, and she chose the guy because of his six pack, and she's like, it's so weird. A guy I dated because of his chiseled jaw isn't a good dad. Like, there's no correlation between those two things, and both men and women are guilty of this, in my opinion, of doing really bad decision-making calculus. I saw an amazing video a short video the other week, maybe it was last week on YouTube, and they were interviewing women from the 60s. They said, what are you looking for in a man? And the women were so smart. They were saying things like good father, kind, generous, will protect me. And they go, well, what if he, how handsome? And she goes, why would I care about that? And they were interviewed a bunch of different women. Like they interviewed like 20 or 30 women. They're all like, the woman's like, well, I don't think looks matter that much as long as he's a good father. And I was like, that woman is so smart, because I would much rather be a good father than be handsome. Like if those are the two choices, but there are a lot of guys who make the other choice, right? And you go, oh, I got a handsome guy who doesn't take care of his kids. And they were like, how much money does he make? She goes, oh, enough to pay the bills, I guess. As long as he can pay the electricity, it's all good. So they weren't even looking for like super wealth either. And
she sounds like a dream, this woman. Sounds wonderful.
There was a bunch of women who were all saying this. It was like 60 of them. And that's the shift, is that our culture has shifted to where now women go, I have my own money. I have my own OnlyFans. I have whatever. I make my money my other ways. I don't need whatever a guy can provide. And then and we can go down this rabbit hole where like a lot of guys will say, what do you bring to the table? And she goes, if you have to ask that, then I don't want to be with you. Or I am the table, which is a really bad answer. It's like, you're an inanimate object. I don't understand what that even means. But if you think I have to bring something to the relationship, then you don't. And it's like, yeah, then it's not a relationship if you don't bring anything. It's a one-way relationship. But I think that
it's kind of like going to a picnic, right? It's like, what are you going to bring? What am I going to bring? And then who's going to bring the blanket and the
I'm going to bring my appetite.
Yeah. So listen, I know you have a radio show to do, and I didn't want to hold you up there. Or do we? Maybe we should call it a day.
Yeah. So this was cool. I had a good time as always thinking about Men's Mayhem. I hope guys are enjoying this. Make sure that you follow us, hit the bell if you want to get notified every time we post a video, and of course, you need to work on your smell, because I can tell I'm dealing with this with my sons right now. If you want to up your game, you need some Animal Accords. That's what I'm talking about.
Animalic Accords, baby. Feral, our sponsor. Fantastic Animalic Accords that women just cannot get enough of on a man. Absolutely Wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Bye.